All right, so multiplying and dividing rational expressions is essentially just more simplifying, but now we have two numerators to work with and two denominators to work with. So just like before, we can't start canceling anything that is in terms of addition. So all of our binomials and trinomials need to be factored first to be put into multiplication form to be able to cancel. So on this first one, you'll notice on the top left, there's a GCF. And the bottom right is a difference of squares. And now that we're in terms of multiplication, we can cancel. So I see some k plus 3's that are the same. And then k squared divided by k just leaves me with k. So the hardest part about this, actually, I find that people just lose track of their own what's left, what factors still remain. So just pay close attention. There's a 3 and a k, and then only a k minus 3 in the denominator. So I'm going to jump down to number 3 and then actually give you numbers 2 and 4 to practice on your own. So again, actually the only thing there is to do here is a difference of squares. And then remember, when we cancel, we're either canceling the exact same factors or we're canceling opposite factors. So y minus x and x minus y are opposites. I tend to keep that factor of -1 in the numerator, but denominator would be fine as well. So I've got a -1 and x and a y plus x, and the easiest way to put all that together is going to be a negative x times y plus x, and then your denominator just has a y. So I'm going to encourage you at this point to pause and to try numbers 2 and 4 to make sure that you're on the right track, and then to unpause, and I will quickly work through number 2 and 4 for you. All right, so if you've got this far on number 4, that's great. The one that I'm just going to show you a way to write it a little bit more concisely. So b plus a and a plus b are really the same thing, and typically when you see a repeated factor, you will see it written as that factor to the second power. So a plus b to the second, and then we still have our -1 there. You're welcome to have a -1 or just your negative as well. So far we've factored doing a GCF and a difference of squares. It's also possible that you will be asked to factor trinomials to be able to cancel in the numerator and denominator as well. So typically, because this is such a doozy of a problem, there are 4 pretty difficult trinomials. I usually split it up and just ask part of the room to do one piece and to put it all together. So I'm going to ask you to do one of these on your own just to make sure that you still remember how to factor these difficult trinomials. So go ahead and pause, pick one of these to try, and then I'll put up all 4. So this top left one does have a GCF as well. And I'm going to walk you through this process for the top left one just to make sure you remember those difficult trinomials. So when we had a coefficient for x squared, that coefficient is going to have to work with your constant number to make that sum or difference of a 14. So to get that 14, I'm noticing I can get a 12 and a 2. To get the 12 part, remember the 3 and the 4 are actually having to be in opposite parentheses. And then your, backwards. Your x and your 2 will get your 2x. So 12x, 2x will get 14x. They both need to be negative. So if you did one of the other 3, let's go ahead and check those as well. Your bottom left should be 2x plus 5 and x minus 4. Your top right should be 8x minus 3 and 2x plus 5. And your bottom right should, your bottom right should be 8x minus 3 and 3x minus 2. So the hard part is finished. We've taken these things that were in terms of addition, these trinomials, and we've put them into terms of multiplication, which allows us then to cancel. So go ahead and start canceling. This is way less fun than it normally is during class, when typically I either get people really excited about everything canceling or people super annoyed that a problem this hard turns out with such a simple answer. So all of your binomials cancel and actually just leave you with that x that was out front from the GCF. So the only thing we need to add on is division. And division, we know dividing fractions is the same as multiplying fractions. We just have to worry about our reciprocal. Otherwise, the concept is still the same. So my encouragement, when you do that reciprocal, when you rewrite it, if there are things to factor, you are welcome to do that at the same time. So I went ahead and just flipped that second fraction, used the reciprocal 2 minus y over p. And as I rewrite my first fraction, I'm also going to go ahead and factor. So I notice a difference of squares, so y plus 2, y minus 2. And now I'm set to cancel. So p squared divided by p is just p. I notice a set of opposite factors. Again, numerator or denominator for that -1 does not matter. And I'm left with negative p over y plus 2. So I'm going to encourage you to pause again and try number 7. It's very similar to this one. So if you factored the first fraction, so if you factored the numerator and the denominator because you noticed they were difference of squares, that's great. You're going to end up at the same spot. However, I actually already noticed that these are opposites. X squared minus 16, 16 minus x squared. So it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to have -1 times the reciprocal. It's just going to be a little bit shorter, but either way, you would end up with things canceling enough that you end up at the same answer. So this last one is going to be, again, I think a good opportunity. I think this, you know how to factor, you know how to cancel, you know to use reciprocals when you multiply, or excuse me, divide fractions. So it's just putting together a lot of these old skills that you have. So my encouragement right now is going to be that you take a moment again and pause and practice those trinomials again. So I'm going to go ahead and just, as I do the reciprocal, the difference of squares, careful because the 1 is first, the 1s have to go first in the parentheses as well. But I'm going to give you a second, see what you can do with those 3 trinomials to make sure that that is still a skill that you have. So again, a quick reminder, I'm going to do the first one, the top left trinomial, just as a reminder of, for those difficult trinomials, that process we went through. So thinking of the factors of 2 and 15 to try to make a 1, I recognize that I can make a 6 and a 5 that by subtraction would give me that 1 in the middle. So let's see where everything needs to go. So 2 times 3 needs to go in the other parentheses. 1x times 5. And then let's see, I want my 6 to be negative. So 2 times -3 and my 5 to be positive. And then I'll let you go ahead and check these second 2 as well. So also pro tip, it's not always the case, but say I did the top left trinomial and I got a 2x plus 5 and I couldn't figure out the bottom trinomial. While it's not always true that there's going to be matching binomials, that at least might give me a clue of what parentheses to try, what combinations of numbers, if I'm thinking that, well, at some point something's probably going to cancel. So hard part done, factoring. Now the fun part, canceling. Again, I know I probably get a lot more excitement out of all the things canceling, but 2 things to be careful of. X plus 1 and 1 plus x are actually the same. Right? Commutative property, we can add in any order we want. Whereas subtraction, 7 minus 2, 2 minus 7, not the same, right? So these 2 are actually opposites. So everything cancels except for that opposite factor.